back to the shop, friends. I'm excited today to introduce you to a new video series on how to build a treadle lathe. Stick around to the end and I'm going to show you my plans and show you all the parts that will make the lathe a functioning unit. This is a project I have been thinking about doing for a long time. Probably 10 years ago, I was introduced to a treadle lathe online, and I've always wanted to build one. I started to build one maybe 8 or 10 years ago, and I gave up after building the flywheel. But I think now that I have a proper workbench to work on, that I can definitely build this project. It may be a challenge with both my woodworking skills and also my metalsmithing skills, but I think using these sources that I have found, I think it's possible to build a functioning treadle lathe that maybe can even turn up to over 1,000 RPMs per minute. The sources I'm going to be using for this project is Make Your Own Treadle Lathe by Steve Schmeck. It's a really great book that I found that has some really good instructions for building a lathe. And then Roy Underhill also has published a free tutorial lathe from a Loft that I pulled off the internet. Mr. Chicadee on YouTube also built a beautiful treadle lathe in a prior video that I've also watched, and we'll be using that as well as somewhat of a resource. There's not really great plans online, and I haven't been able to find a tutorial on how to build this, so I think this series will be useful for you, and also a really fun project for me. I've always wanted to have a lathe in the shop, and I've never had access to one, and I think this will be really fun to be able to do it with only foot power. And to be honest with you, since we're building a foot powered lathe, I think it's appropriate to build this lathe using only hand tools. So I am committed to using only hand tools for this project, and I think that'll be fun for you to watch as well. So here are my rough draft plans that I've come up with, and this is a front view of the lathe, and this is a side view. Let me zoom in a little bit and see if I can get you a little closer. I think that's better. So the front view here shows the components of the lathe. It's made up of upright supports, and there'll be 3 of those, 1, 2, and 3. And then it's made up of ways which connect the supports. There is a headstock that will have a pulley that turns the actual working mechanism of the lathe, and then there's a flywheel that is turned by a crank mechanism and a foot pedal. The tailstock will connect to the tail section of the wood that's being milled. I'm planning on using joinery for connecting the ways and the uprights, and then also using joinery to have some feet connected to the uprights to give it lateral stability. The side view looks like this, and the upright is here with the feet sections mortise and tenon in place with some dowels holding that together, and then this is depicting the ways coming through the upright sections with a mortise and tenon joint, and then the spindle, the rod that will be turning the wood goes through the upright here. The total height I'm planning is a 42-inch height of the upright, including the feet, and the foot is going to be somewhere between 18 and 24 inches. 24 inches is probably the best. It'll give the most lateral support, but it also takes up more space. The flywheel will be 24 inches in diameter, giving a large turning radius. This is sort of just rough draft plans that I've come up with. The total width of the lathe will be 42 inches, and that should allow me to turn wood up to about 18 inches, which is the primary use I think I'll use it for, is making tool handles and small spindles. I won't be able to turn any type of table legs with this particular lathe, but maybe at a later time I can build another one once I have more shop space. The approximate height of the ways will be 32 inches, and then I will build a tool support that will attach to the way when you're actually turning the wood and holding your chisels still. The crank mechanism will be built out of this half-inch rod that I purchased at Ace Hardware. And then the actual turning mechanism of the lathe will be made out of this 5/8 inch rod that I also purchased at Ace Hardware. The other components of the lathe are made up of the 3/8 of an inch galvanized flanges, and this will actually attach to the flywheel, and then the rod will go through the flange here, and it'll be actually secured in place by a pin that goes through the flange into the rod, securing the rod to the flange. There'll be 2 flanges, one of which will be on both sides of the flywheel, and both of which will be secured to provide a very sturdy support there. I'm also going to be using bearing collars, which you can see here, which will help keep any movement from side to side of the mechanism on the spindles. And I'll be using these bearings that I purchased at Ace Hardware as well, and this will allow the rods to turn within the mechanism of the headstock. The actual mechanism in which attaches to the wood that you're going to be milling is called a 5/8 of an inch drive spur, and this will be fixed to the actual spindle or rod like this, and it'll be secured in place, and then that will actually fix to the wood. And as you can see, this will fix very tightly. This is actually from a Shopsmith, and I purchased this on eBay used. I think both the tailstock and the headstock here were around $30 used. So this is the portion that will be connected to the wood on the left side, or the headstock side, and then the tailstock side will have this, which is called a MT2 Cup center, and this will stick into the wood, and then this actually goes into the tailstock and allows that to spin. Hope you can see that okay. This part here will be fixed into the tailstock wood section, and then it'll be pinned in place to keep it from moving side to side. This took a while to figure out how to do this. It was the plans aren't real clear, and it's taken a lot of research to figure out what parts are needed to make the lathe function properly. And I guess I won't know for sure that it's going to work until I actually get the milling done and get the lathe put together. But I think all this will work pretty well. I'll also be able to attach a plate to the headstock for turning bowls as well. I'll just have to take this off and then attach the mechanism for turning bowls. These are the pins that I purchased here to go through the galvanized flanges into the turning rod. And then when it comes to the crank mechanism, I'm going to need to bend the crank to two 90-degree angles that will allow the foot powered to turn the flywheel there. So this is sort of rough plans, and I think that it's going to work fine. It's probably going to be a little bit of a slow project because there is a lot of hand tool work here, and there's a fair amount of milling to be done. I have obviously started some of the milling already, and I'm almost ready to start dimensioning everything. I hope you find this project interesting and will follow along. If you know of anybody else who will would like this project, I would definitely invite them to join along with the project. I hope to get this done within the next 6 weeks or so. I don't know if it'll take longer than that. Hopefully 3 or 4, maybe 5 videos will get it complete. I'm not going to force you to watch me mill all of the lumber like I did in the workbench series, because I know that probably is a little bit boring. But if you have any suggestions on this project, please leave that in the comment section. But I'm really excited about this project, and I hope you will be too, and will follow along and give me suggestions along the way. And hopefully within a few weeks, maybe a month, we'll be turning some tool handles. So anyways, that's all the time we have for today. I hope you enjoy the video today, and I hope you will consider subscribing and follow along for this project. Thanks again.